Lena.
Okay. So we're
You're
hanging out in Waychester now, right? Like
Yes.
we're back. Okay.
This is I just like listening. This is kind of fun.
Um.
I thought this would be a fun sort of way to get everybody's feet wet again before the trial.
Yeah, I got like a front row seat right here.
Yeah.
Kick back.
And we won't even get to everybody's in this particular session, but we will.
Okay.
Do you remember what you had lined up for this?
No, so I'm just gonna make it up on the fly because I don't remember.
Well, Chris probably remembers.
Oh, do
some
you
stuff.
remember something?
Do I know the way?
Do you know the way? Show me the way.
I know
He's the
the
captain
way.
now.
I am the captain now. Look at me.
Enlighten me, please.
Among what I remember, and I think there was one other thing that I'm not remembering, but you wanted to spend some time meditating.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I want to figure out where we're going next.
And you had recently sent a letter to your grandmother.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
Before, I think, embarking on the second leg of the Conatus, you had sent that out.
Yes.
And then returned to Waychester. And lo and behold, a few hours after Karash heads out, you get called down to, oh god, the Witch's Cauldron. Don't remember my own shit. I think that's right, though. Where's my notes on Waychester? What's happening? Oh, yeah, Falstock's in there again, right? Yeah, the Witch's Cauldron, that's correct. You get called down to the lobby of the Witch's Cauldron, and lo and behold, your grandmother, Annetta, in the flesh, waiting for you, sitting at a table.
Grandma. Oh, my goodness. Okay.
I missed out on my drinking buddy.
Oh, no, Crash.
I don't know if anybody else is still in the vicinity or not when this happens, or if you, like, Isaac and Tessian both might be around, depending on when this happens concurrently. Tessian probably not, considering what's going to happen with his, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Isaac was not doing anything in particular, so he could be around if you even wish to tell him, or if you just go see it, that's entirely up to you.
Okay.
But Karash is definitely gone, and Tessian probably is too.
Well, I mean, I'm just so surprised to see her. So is she just, like, at a table off in the corner? Like...
And she's sipping on an ale.
And she's
So
sipping
she's-
on an ale, of course
She
she
seems
is.
to be getting a head start on what she anticipates will be another battle with Karash. She is going to be disappointed.
Oh, she's gonna be very sad. Okay, well, I'll walk over and, grandmother, I'm surprised to see you here in person.
Ah, Fable, dear. It is good to see you, and see you being well. How have you been?
Oh, I have so much to tell you. So much has happened. But first I'm gonna give her a hug. And then I'll,
She
like...
turns into dust. No.
No! Ah!
She got Thanos snapped.
Thanos
The
snapped!
Conatus is rough.
And then I'll pull over, like, a stool and sit close to her, and I'll try to keep it brief. I don't want to overwhelm her with all the details of the journey, but I'll tell her that we've completed this was the second shrine of the Conatus journey in Frosthaven, and now we're here in Waychester with some political reasons. Don't want to get into it too much.
She just kind of nods, and she's like, I can imagine.
Yes, it's rather complicated. But it's been well. I think I'm learning so much and gaining power that I think will be beneficial to everyone, I hope.
So you've received a new form or two, then?
Yes, I haven't used them yet, but other than the Silver Dragon, I haven't used the elemental powers yet. I'm honestly a little scared. The power, when I was forcefully transformed, it was overwhelming and I lost control. And I don't really like that feeling. But I'm sure with time it's something I can learn to do. Is that something you experienced in your journey with... Wait, she went with Aurelia, right? Or no?
No.
It was somebody else.
She did go on a Conatus. It was with somebody else.
Somebody else. Okay. Is that what you experienced as well, grandmother?
She nods. She says, well, as we discussed, I can't really talk about what lies ahead, but I can talk about what you've already been through, and yes, was similar. My Fable dear was given that same extraordinary power, and it was up to us to help them manage it, get it back under control. It was both terrifying and awe-inspiring to see such a concentrated version of the elements before us. But it also speaks to how dangerous it can be and why such level-headedness is important.
I nod and I say, that's good. It sounds like your Fable-Deer was able to master this over time, I assume.
She says, not really. No, well, I suppose I can bend the rules a little bit. My Fable-Deer was named Folwyn Raveler, and he got off to a good start in the journey. Made it further than you have thus far, but did not complete it. Well, in our travels, our backs were pushed up against the wall at one point, and he tried to rely on one of those elemental forms before he was ready, before he had given it the proper time and understanding to master it, control it, and it took a terrible strain on him. That and the fourth leg of the journey was trying. We lost one of our companions there, and I think the strain of it got to be too much for him, and he halted his journey there, never completed the fourth step, and he was so shaken by the whole ordeal that I don't know, it's difficult. There's so much pressure on you and the others like you who have to go through this journey. And as a result, I think some people break even knowing how important it is. If anything, knowing how important it is makes it tougher for them. So our journey was one that ended in failure, and that is the tale of the Conatus for the last 3 or 4 centuries. Failure.
That's troubling. I feel it though. I know what you're referring to about the pressure. I feel it as well. But I don't want to be that failure. I don't want to continue that trend. I'd like to see this through with everyone, and we've already lost one of our allies. I don't want to lose anyone else either.
What happened?
Well, it's yeah, it's true. It's been a while. Grail, she was connected to another dimension, another world, I suppose, and we were traveling through a teleportation circle, and she disappeared inside of it. We came out the other side, and she was gone. I don't know what happened. We tried to scry on her, hoping we could figure out what happened, and we don't know. I assume she was transported back to that other world, but I don't know what that means for this continent or the future. I don't think it bodes well.
She kind of just shakes her head sadly. Takes I was going to say a sip, but it's more like a heavy swig of a drink. She says, I'm sorry to hear that. She seemed close to you in our limited interactions with each other.
Yes, she was a very dear friend.
I may ask around and do some reading about it, but admittedly, this sounds like magic beyond my grasp. I'm much more familiar with those that are connected to nature, and this sounds like something different entirely, but who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I at least am pretty well connected. Maybe if I ask around, I can find something. I don't want to get your hopes up, but
it'd be lovely if you could. Even just anything would be reassuring. But also, I know the chances of that isn't likely because of the nature of what we're dealing with. It's otherworldly.
And troubling.
Yes.
To me, I regard that type of magic as unnatural, but in the sternest sense. Something that does not belong in this world. Something that disrupts the balance that we have. It's just unfortunate that it took someone away from you in the process.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. It's very just troubling and saddening.
She seems like she's almost like you can see her shoulders have kind of slumped, and she's trying to figure out like what to say next. And she goes, "Well, not to make light of your friend disappearing. That's terrible, terrible news, and something that hopefully we can fix. But you have completed 2 legs, and that is something worth celebrating. And as you may already know, some people don't even make it that far. We've had journeys fail on the first leg. We've had, from what I hear, it's before even my time, but 1 or 2 individuals who didn't even want to undertake it, who had the proper blood running through them, but were too put off by the task or scared by the potential of the power they might obtain that they didn't even want to undergo the journey. They refused. So it is something to be proud of. You have a ways to go, but even making it this far, I'm proud of you. I know your mother is. I'd like to think your father is. If he's not busy being so stubborn.
How is home, if you don't mind me asking?
Much the same as when you left.
Hmm.
It's been busier lately. Carnaran keeps himself occupied with time in his study, drafting letters to who knows where. And Sylvana worries about you. She is concerned for your safety. It sort of is in regards to your letter as well, but we have been keeping tabs on you periodically. Much the same way that I found you to meet with you last time. We can use your earring, and she kind of like reaches up to your ear and like brushes your ear gently, like, you know, a calming kind of gesture.
Mm-hmm.
We can use this to keep tabs on you if necessary, and while I think your mother would like us to do that constantly, I've fended her off to where it's maybe every week or so we just look in to make sure you're okay. And so that gives her some relief, but truth be told, she would probably have rather you not left to do this journey, whether or not you had been exiled. She worries, you know how she is.
I do. She was always... She'd always get so mad at me when I caused trouble back home. So that doesn't surprise me much.
But, you know, I've talked to your father a bit, and while I don't agree with what he did, I sort of wonder if that same pressure of a handful of Conatus' failing in a row was not on his shoulders as well. I almost wonder if... I don't know. It's as though exiling you was his way of pushing you in that direction, and I don't agree with that. I think you should have been able to do it when you were ready, but perhaps there was some method to his madness. I'm not going to make excuses for him. I don't agree with his way of rule over the last few years, but I don't know. I think he feels the pressure of the Soamwood becoming more and more isolated the longer we go without an ambassador who can speak for us across the world. And unless he wants to break tradition and open the Soamwood to outsiders, that's our best hope of connecting with the outside world. So, I don't know. Your mother argued with him on many an occasion, to no avail, but at the very least, you can ask him yourself when you complete this, and you stand on equal terms with him, if not above him.
I'd like that very much. I will say I don't always understand what thoughts he has or why he makes the decisions he does. It would be of benefit, I think, especially if one day I do rule, to have his experience would be valuable.
And the truth is, I thought you were ready. And, I mean, no one can ever truly be ready for this journey. The toll it takes is tremendous, but if I had thought that you were unprepared, I would have done everything in my power to prevent you from being exiled in the first place. I knew it was going to be rough for you, but there is a power that flows through you that I already felt you were tapping into, and your success in the first 2 legs has proven that now. And I have confidence in you. I think your parents do as well. Some of that I think is hope, as much as it is confidence, but they believe in you. And so do I.
I kind of breathe a sigh of relief. I say, thank you, Grandmother. That's more reassuring than I think you know.
So where are you at now? In regards to your letter, it is possible for others to use similar magic. The familiarity with the target helps, so my close connection with you makes it easy for me to keep tabs on you and see what you can see and what you're up to at a given moment if necessary. It would be much harder for someone who doesn't know you or barely knows you to do the same, but there is a type of magic that makes that type of... I don't know if surveillance is a word that would exist in this world. Fuck it, it's the Anachroschism. That makes that type of surveillance possible. Now, typically, if it's someone that you're not familiar with, you would feel the effects in some way. You would almost, from my limited experience with it, you would get this unsettled feeling, almost as though you were being watched. So unless you've experienced something like that, I don't think that's how anybody might be keeping tabs on you, but it is a possibility at the very least.
It's good to know. I don't think I felt anything like that. We were just trying to eliminate any potential threads because there has been evidence to suggest that we are being watched, and it'll make the journey going forward potentially more difficult if that continues to be the case and we can't pinpoint the source or where it's coming from or who. But I don't think I felt that experience that you described.
Well, even though this is an ancient tradition of sorts, there are people who are familiar with the conatus and what it represents. Now, people's memories of that are probably short because many of them have had generations pass without someone having successfully completed it, to the point where sometimes in passing, when I was still traveling around, I had people who thought it was a legend. It had been so long since they had seen any results from it. But there are those who are familiar with it, and it's possible there are those who might seek to stop it. And that's not to make you paranoid, but it is just a concern of mine that it just means it's important to rely on your companions, because you never know. I would love to tell you that the journey itself was the most difficult part, and it probably is, but just like the tests you must pass along the way, making it to each test is in and of itself an obstacle to overcome. And in many ways, it's why the journey is so important, to spend time amongst the people, even the ones who despise us or the ones who don't understand us, because good rulers have to oversee everybody underneath them. Those who are grateful and those who are not. Those who like us and those who don't. Those who agree and those who disagree. It's all about having the proper judgment to do what is best for everyone under your care. So, I almost don't need to tell you this, but be careful. Both when you're undergoing each leg of the conatus, but also when you're traveling about, because you just never know.
I will, for sure. I trust my group. I trust my companions wholeheartedly. And I doubt that will change. I think that trust will only get stronger.
Well, you seem to have a good group. Although...
Yes.
A little smaller now, unfortunately, but... I think you found some good people. That young Genasi lad seemed like a keeper.
Yes. my closest ally, for sure.
But the others seem trustworthy as well, and as far as I'm concerned, if they passed the Cavis test, they must be okay. He has a good way of weeding out people's true intentions, and if he trusts them, I'm inclined to as well. Not that I don't already, but it's an extra endorsement in my book.
Agreed. Cavis is a good man. I think his judgment of character is spot on.
If only he were a few hundred years older.
Are you interested, grandmother?
Well, he's my type,
Ah.
but there would be some obstacles. Let's just say.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions for your grandmama?
The grandmama.
You're welcome to kind of catch up and grab a meal together, spend a few hours together.
I definitely want to do that. I'll probably try to pry a little more into the like political situation back home, ask about my brother as well, see how he's doing. And I'll also try to tell her some of the more fun parts of our adventures. I'll tell her about the book that we found that said that elves were like 8 feet tall or whatever, and all the just wrong information that was in it because it was amusing, and try to keep it light in light of our rather serious talk. So, yeah.
She says, I would think it was funny as well if it wasn't so damn sad. It's in my travels, which are rare for our people, obviously, but it seemed the further you got away from information, the more tall tales like that spread. And
It's true.
it's unfortunate to
I
think that people actually believe those things if they don't have any reason not to.
Yeah. And I didn't realize just how our isolation could have led to that snowball effect of just this false information getting out there, and I think it just reinforces that we can't keep going down that road.
I agree. I think it's important. I think knowledge is one of our greatest benefits and one that we can share easily if we have the right position. And my grandmother used to tell me stories of a time long, long ago, and you can see her kind of like sighing as she says this, like, fuck, I'm old. A time long ago when even people with magical abilities were ostracized to some extent because people didn't understand it. It wasn't as widespread. And for those who had never seen it before, it was like encountering something that they couldn't even understand. Many of them thought they may have worshipped false gods or I don't know. It's just there will always be those who don't necessarily understand what's happening. And as I mentioned, it's our charge to protect them just as much as we protect anybody else, perhaps more so, because they lack the tools to do it themselves.
That's right. Actually, on that topic of magic, have you, in your time, grandmother, have you noticed any sort of shift from a nature perspective or any shift with the elements or magic? Have you felt anything change over the years?
She thinks on this for a moment, takes a sip. I can't say that I have. I'm not as well connected to nature as someone who can complete the Conatus would be, or even just someone connected to it like yourself. I feel the connection most closely in the Sowen Wood, and it feels much the same as it did 200-300 years ago. There were times when I traveled on the Conatus that I was on that the shrines themselves always just felt like such an outpouring of magical activity that it did feel somewhat strange, but I wouldn't say that it was negative. It didn't feel like something was amiss. It just felt like an abundance of that faint feeling I could always feel in the Sowen Wood, that familiar warmth of sorts. But there are also a great deal of types of magic that I don't understand. So it's difficult for me to say for sure.
Okay. It's just something we've encountered on our travels, and I wanted to see if maybe you had any insight, potentially.
She kind of thinks on it for a second. She goes, there was one time. I don't know how I could forget other than trying to block it out, but the day the mana cannon fired, I felt sick to my stomach. And you know from your journey now just how far away the Sowen Wood is from where the epicenter of that explosion was, but even from the comforts of the Sowen Wood that day, I felt it. Something disruptive, something horrible. completely unnatural, not meant to be. But that feeling passed within a day or so and gradually became less and less intense. I have not experienced anything like that since.
I saw its devastation on the way here, on the train, in the Still Valley?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In Still Valley. And I had a similar feeling of just feeling sick. And obviously it's been years after the cannon went off, and I still felt awful going through there.
Well, it's the one place where I could say I just felt something off. Not because the magic in that region seems altered in some way, but just because you saw for yourself, no natural life has regrown, and it just feels wrong that something that man has created could alter nature in such a way.
Do you know of any energy that could cause something like that? To cause nature to not return? That seems strange. Is there some kind of magic, dark magic that was involved?
She kind of shakes her head as she thinks about it. She says, when I first heard about it, I thought maybe there was some kind of dark art at play. We hear about fools who dabble in necromancy from time to time. We oppose that sort of magic at every turn, because it disrupts the very thing that we try to protect, but it seems different. It's not like the area is dead. It's just as though nothing can return there, like it refuses to grow again. It is strange, and even now that 40 years have passed, I don't know that I have a better grasp of it. If anything, we thought perhaps with time the region might eventually heal, but I don't know.
And I just kind of, like, sit there and just ponder that for a minute, what that might mean.
She tells you your brother's doing well.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm doing this in third person. Sebastian's doing well. He seems conflicted. He obviously roots for your success for any number of reasons. But I think he's questioning himself a bit because he doesn't understand his father's actions completely, and he also doesn't know what it means for him if you succeed. I think there's always that question in the back of his mind because he knew that this was something you would undertake someday, and that a successful journey might mean that he would no longer rule the Sowenwood. And I don't think he harbors any resentment towards you for it, but it does have him questioning what he can and should be doing.
I didn't know he felt that way.
I think he wants to do what's best for the Sowenwood, and he's always felt that bit of pressure where he might eventually lead. But at this point, as we continue to hear stories of your success, I think he's starting to realize that you very well might do it. And again, you have no bigger backer than him except perhaps your mother or myself, but I think it's made him start to realize that whatever he thought he might do with the rest of his life might change. And like anybody else, he's just struggling to feel through what that might look like.
God, how do I even respond to that?
Perhaps you should write him a letter.
That might be good, actually.
Just check in, since obviously you can't return home and speak to him, and I don't think your father would ever allow him to come see you, but perhaps your next correspondence should go to him. Now, I encourage you to write me again if you need my guidance or have a question, as you did this time, but maybe check in with him or send one to the whole family, or send one to each. At the time, which is hard to spare on this journey, but if you have time to sit down and write it, I think it would do all of them some good to hear from you and how things have been going and what you've experienced.
I think you're right. I will do that. As soon as I get a moment, I'm going to sit down and write a letter to each of them. I think that would be wise. Plus, I can start trying to mend the broken bridge with Father. I would like to make strides towards that.
Well, as I told you before, I would like to think that he'll see reason someday. If you complete this journey, he'll have no reason but to. But I don't know. At the very least, checking in wouldn't hurt. It would raise their spirits, and while I can provide them some updates along the way, I think they would still be benefited in a different way if it came directly from you.
I think there's some things that only... Oh, God, what am I trying to say? I think it'll ease their spirits in a way that only I would be able to do in a personal letter versus hearsay.
Yet despite how well-traveled I am and how old and wise, they don't always listen to me. If they did, you wouldn't have been exiled in the first place. So I can tell them what I see and that I think your journey's going well, but again, it'll have a different clout if it's signed by you and has a first-person account. It shouldn't be the case, but you know how your father is.
Oh, don't I? And you know, they really should listen to you more, Grandmother. You're just a well of wisdom. I don't understand it.
Well, every generation that follows thinks they know better. And sometimes they do. Sometimes we get caught in the old ways, but I think I'm right more often than not.
I think so, too.
Any other questions for Grandmama?
For the Grandmama? No, I don't think so. I think that is it. Yeah, I think that's all I had. So I'll probably just have pleasantries with Grandma over a meal.
Mm-hmm.
For the remainder of however long she's here. I guess I could ask how long she's going to be here, but we can just do that in
just
third
the
person.
afternoon.
Just the afternoon. Okay.
She basically comes a little afternoon and then plans to stay maybe until it starts to get dark, and then she transported via plants to get here, so she'll have to do the same thing when she leaves.
Yeah. You know, one day, Grandmother, you'll have to teach me that teleportation spell through the plants. It'd be very useful.
Well, you have to get more powerful to do it. And
I'm not there yet?
No, not yet. You have come a long way. I can sense it in you, but maybe another 100 years or so.
Ugh. Okay. I'll remember
just
this.
teasing. I'm teasing. Honestly, if you can complete this journey, you should be able to access magics of that nature as well.
That is rather exciting, actually. I look forward to it. I want to learn more and do what I can to help everyone. So anything I can learn and master would be valuable.
She has a nice meal with you, tries to get you to drink.
I refuse. Politely, but I do refuse.
Seems to be missing Karash.
Last time I drank, a succubus almost killed Tessian.
Exactly.
That's not true. Grail almost killed Tessian.
Yeah, I do give her an update on everybody and just let them know that let her know that they're doing well, and
she gets all the details she can't get from just periodically scrying on you once a week, just fill in all the stuff, and then a few hours pass, and you regretfully escort her to the exterior of the city where she jumped through a tree to get inside, and she splits the trunk open, steps inside, and the tree closes, and you're left just south of the city with an uncomfortable silence.
This isn't fair because Jason did nose goes before
like
this
half an
section
hour
was
ago.
even done.
They've been very persistent.
And that's like calling shotgun 3 days before you get in the car.
That's really funny. I love it.
I was wondering why Mike was doing it.
I was just
I don't wanna go
encouraging the
again.
behavior.
I was like, all right, Karash, you want another go? Let's fucking go.
And now I'm done. So.
All right, so we'll just pull back the curtain. Programming note. This next vignette's going to take another half hour or so. It's about what I've lined up for each of these. That puts us past 10 o'clock. Do we stop or keep going? It's 9:40.
Probably stop. Because that's only if it takes 30 minutes, and if we want to kind of have fun with it, then we're going to push it back even more.
Yeah.
So Tessie and I get to go next time, though.
Yeah.
On Dragon Ball Z.
And actually, I'm writing a letter.
Aw,
that
so you
Isaac's
get to
gonna
read it
read.
next time.
Yeah, it's not going to be as happy as you think it is.
No, I get a feeling it's not at all. Because if I know Isaac, he's a sad boy.
Oh, jeez.
That's true.
All is lost, dear reader.
So
Grail is gone.
that concludes our session this time. Next time we have 2 more little vignettes for our characters, and then something else before the trial of the century begins. And I know I said at the end of the last video that we were going to start the trial the next time, but look, some things have happened, pacing's off, but we're close. It's just around the corner. There's literally only 2 days left before it happens, so it's coming. Don't you worry.